Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Mick's Wild Goose Chase, the rig for 2025, where he started referring to himself in the third person. That's how bad things have become. Anyway, I left you at the top of episode 2. If you want to know the full story, go back to episode 1. Welcome to the nut house, basically. At the end of episode 3, I just bought Mugly, the one-eyed, three-legged beast that's found a loving home with its new owner. 100-watt Marshall. We got nuts about it. We played him in some shows. Anyway, you can hear all about that in episode 2. I picked it up on a Thursday, and on the Friday we had an experience day, and that's where people come and join us for the day, and we just, well, experience stuff. And it's a bit of a spectacle, so I thought, I know what, why don't I run the Marshall wet dry with the 2-rock? On the Sunday we were doing the Birmingham Guitar Show. Thank you, Jason, and everyone that came to that. And same thing, bit of a spectacle, so take a crazy rig. Hard to imagine actually doing a real gig with this. The kind of gigs that I do, probably not. I appreciate it's like a small fly rig for Joe Bonamassa, but for me, it's the most insane rig I've ever put up, really. Anyway, so before we consign it to experience days and guitar shows, I thought I'd give you a listen to it on what has become the pedal board. And we'll get into that more in this episode. And maybe we'll even finish the whole thing this episode. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. The recording, YouTube, all of that's never going to do it justice. You really have to be in the room to hear it. But we'll get some tones anyway, quickly, and then we'll move on to something, I don't know, marginally more sane. But anyway, we'll see. Okay, so without the 2-rock, I've just realised I haven't got the dB meter in. Okay, it's in a very different place from usual. Wherever I put it behind my head, you couldn't see it, so it'll probably be reading slightly over what it normally is. Right, back to the Marshall. Two-rock fattening things out in a huge way. Unusually, I've got the wet set up as the Marshall because I kind of want to prove that you can run reverb and delay in the front of it, even though it's starting to break up just a little bit where I like it. So It's absolutely unhinged, and that's... I've got no idea what the DB Mesa was saying. The Marshall's not even in its happy place, and the 2-Rock is barely breathing. Well, I say barely breathing, the Master's on like 2, 3. It's crazy. Before we wrap this bit, I just want to do one thing. Like I say, this is an indulgence, this isn't the actual rig. Novo event, it's this baritone. Massive tangent, let's do it anyway. I'm going to stick on a giant reverb. Remember, the giant reverb is going to the Marshall. all change. So that's all good fun, isn't it? But even I'm willing to admit that it's not really very realistic for any kind of gig I'm going to do. Let's explain what's going on this board then, because it's changed quite a lot since episode 1 for those of you who've been watching that far. I guess the big changes, well, a lot of changes. When I went to try the Marshalls, I thought I'm going to change the board up and take something simple to do the Marshalls, or simpler. And because it's a Marshall, have to have a fuzz. It's like fish and chips. It's like salt and pepper. It's like Laurel and Hardy. You need one if you've got the other. Also, that started me thinking about Eric Johnson, so I put the tube driver on there. Plus, of course, Crazy Tube were about to release the Venus, which I was really interested in. Because it was a Marshall and it has no reverb, needed a reverb. And also in Eric Johnson mode, I wanted something that sounded a bit like a tape echo, not my normal Freethetone echo. So it all changed. I got rid of G3, firstly to save space. Well, yeah, to save space really. But that brings with it a number of problems. Added a QMX2 in order to take this out of the circuit when it's not in use, because the bypass sound is pretty horrible. So that lives in one of the loops of this. And then underneath, given that G3 normally handles all the wet-dry routing, oh, look at that. That's a thing of beauty, isn't it? Sorry, this is even worse than it should be. There's a humdinger to do the wet-dry split. So that's this board. And then what happened was, when I plugged it into the Marshall, I was like, oh my God, this is home, you know? The fuzz especially, I don't know how to say it. I just felt like my heart was saying this is the right direction to go. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to change it. To have the fuzz, I'd bemoaned fuzz in the past because sometimes it can be difficult to use in a band scenario. But with the old band that had reformed and also for my own stuff, fuzz is required. So I thought, let's go with it, you know, let's go with it. Put the fuzz on there. Tube driver just immediately fell in love with that again. And so I thought, well, my heart's telling me to stick with this stuff, so let's stick with it. So the next question is, can I get it even smaller than this? Dan and I did a video on the tube driver and the new Venus and decided I'd very happily replace the tube driver with the new Venus from Crazy Tube, which saves a load of problems. It saves a huge power problem in that this is mains powered, but it also saves a big space problem. So I'm going to do that. Also, this is overkill for the reverb that I need. So can I swap that out for something smaller? Well, guess what? So this is a smaller board and I just chucked all this on there to see if it would fit. Different version of the fuzz, but same size. Argh, that's the prototype. There's the Venus. This is the same size as the Balladeer. Golden, UA Golden in place of the Chase Bliss one. So everything's present and correct. Because of the space saving with the tube driver and the CXM, it's a huge space saving to go down to the Golden and the Venus. Could I get back on here, because I can lose this, this and this, and the humdinger? Can I reintroduce G3? Might it all fit on? Because this one over here is an SA350, which means it's 350 millimeters there. This is an SA450, 450 millimeters. So it's actually not that much space saving to take all of that. That's option one. Could I get it all on there? And then, of course, if I can, I've almost got a B rig, a B board for the small board as a backup. Or at least when I don't want to take the full big one, if I can just need a few less pedals, but broadly the same. I don't know if that's making much sense. We don't need to hear the Venus next to the tube driver because we did a whole video on that and decided I'm very happy with it. So if you want to watch that, please do. I want to say thanks to the recent Experience Day attendees, one of whom, and I'm so sorry I can't remember who you are, I'm going to put your name on the screen now, said, why don't you try the UA Golden? And I always thought I'd had a problem with the buffer in it before, but replaced it there on the Experience Day for the CXM, and for the reverb sound I wanted, totally fine, totally fine. Final mention of the Belly Pop Deluxe. The Belly Pop Deluxe, which everyone seems to laugh at. It just sounds softer. It's got warmth to it that the Free the Tone one that I usually use doesn't have, and it has this incredible warmth that seems to work brilliantly into the Marshall if that's what I want to choose. Yeah, so that's that. Do I go with the 350 without a switcher, or can I get everything on the 450 with a switcher? That seems to be the most sensible thing, because even though it's not really compact like I wanted in the first place, it will cover the reformed band and it will cover my own stuff, and I don't have to mess about with it, and it's actually not that much bigger. So let's have a go at that. We'll deal with the Hughes and Kettner Rotosphere separately. I have a cunning plan for that. Hello folks, welcome to midway through part 3 probably. I'm just doing some grading. So anyway, that's part of life. DaVinci Resolve for anyone who's interested. Getting ready for an edit. Anyway, while I was waiting for the video to come out, I've had this idea. Come with me. Right, I am in very grateful possession and lucky to have a 2-Rock TS1. It's an amazing amp. It's the dumbliest of the things they do. And it's an incredible 112 combo, and it's quite compact. So, second board problem. Large space in bottom of amplifier. I wonder. Obviously there are a number of questions here. Would it be noisy? Will it even fit? No. It does have an effects loop, you see. And a really great effects loop. So if I can get it in there, not only would it solve the second amp problem because it would all be in there, but it also means I would have a totally spectacular 112 combo solution for when I can only take one amp, pedal board in the front, rotosphere, and maybe even reverb in the loop that live in the bottom of the amp. Makes it a bit heavier, but the current problem is it doesn't seem to want to fit. I wonder if it'll go that way. Oh my god. Oh my god. There is a minute chance this might work. Okay, I need to test if it's going to be noisy with the power supply in there, given its proximity to the amp. And if I can get it fixed in there so that it doesn't cause any issues with the amp or interference with the speaker or anything like that. Can't see why it would. This is exciting. Ooh. Can't stop thinking about it. I'm trying to work and I can't stop thinking about it. So it fits, right? Or at least it might fit, but it's really, well, it's going to be a real job getting it in there and all fixed. Now, of course, the frustrating part is here's the 1x12 extension cab, and it fits in there. Just like perfect, and there's plenty of room for the reverb as well if I wanted that. But of course, the problem with that is you then need a separate amp to sit on top and redo all the cabling every time, whereas if it sits permanently in the TS1, it can stay permanently cabled, and when I come to set up, I've literally got one cable from my pedal board into the front of the amp and to plug the power in, and that is really enticing. So I'm going to try and make this work. Let the experiment begin then. So as you can see, this is the back of the 2-Rock. I'll show you the front of it in a minute. On the floor is the Hughes and Kettner Rotosphere, so I'm going to turn it on. It's plugged into the effects loop. Let's see if it works. Okay, first really interesting thing. Sorry, I bend down here. I'll explain this afterwards, actually. That's really interesting, and I'll reflect on what I've just discovered there. The thing to do now is to pick all this up, move it close to the amp, and see if it's going to interfere. Well, that's encouraging. So what I did was I turned the amp on, played a bit. It might not sound very good in the recording because it's facing the wrong way. Although I do have mics on the right side of it. So anyway, I picked up the Rotosphere and the power supply, introduced it to the back of the amp, and there was no significant mains hum, any extra mains hum. So I think that means I can go ahead and mount it in the bottom of the amp. The other thing to say was, I'd mentioned earlier that the 2-rock effects loop is really spectacularly good. And one of the reasons for that is because it's buffered both front and back, plus it's got a level send. And what I thought I'd had it set on minimum and the Rotosphere was really overdriving, but actually I had it set on maximum. So happy days. I can turn the send level down, the return level up. You can have it bright if you want, and you can have it buffered if you want. So every way up that you would want in order to get it sounding clean, you can. So I think this is going to work. Good morning, friends. What a spectacular day. Look at that sky. Just look at it. Oh my God. Beautiful day. The world is reacting to whatever the new import charges are going to be to the US. Everyone's freaking out about it. What I'm freaking out about is how the hell am I going to get this oversized guitar pedal into this boutique amplifier? This is the important shit, my friends. Makita, the only drill you're allowed to use if you're a guitar player. Paul Gilbert fans will get this. I'm going to take the back off and see what happens. So let's do that. Much easier to see what's going on with the actual back off. And the issue we have is, obviously this edge here is where the back meets, so it cannot come any further forward than that, or at least further over. But you've got that little bit of lip there where the baffle attaches, and you've got the thing where the back attaches, which means I'm going to have to really jimmy it in there. Find a way of doing that. Good news is at the back, because of the, well, I don't know if you can see that, but because of this little piece here and this piece here, it means that it can butt right up against there, but there's still enough void, and again I'm really sorry if you can't see this, but there's still enough void in the back if I use right angle plugs so that it can sit right up against the edge there. I am going to have to replace the power thing with a right angle plug, otherwise that will stick out too far. Is it just easier to keep it in the Schmidt Array 250 and have the extra box? It might be, you know, it might be. Onwards. Okay, I've been working with this, to quote Nigel Tufnell. I might come to regret this, but I think, see those 2 spots of pedal board tape there? I'm going to build up an extra layer of that, and I'm going to secure it simply with 2 pieces of pedal board tape. It's very strong stuff. It won't come unattached. The amplifier will always be upright. It never gets stored on its back, on its front. It never gets transported in any other way. The connector for the power supply sticks out a long way, so it needs to be a right angle connector, something that looks more like this or this. And the issue that I was having was trying to get an extender and understanding the difference between the AC and the DC and whether that would work. And of course, one of the great benefits of having Dan as your best mate is you can phone him and he'll tell you. So what he's told me is, if we have a look at the actual adapter, I've undone the screws because it's a screw one, right? I've undone the screws. In here are 2 terminals where they meet. AC. I can unsolder those and put a whole new wire on to keep it really, really nice. I've disconnected the original cable, which means I can keep it intact. So if it ever needs to be put back to original spec, it can. I'm going to attach a new cable. And so far I've stripped the wires and tinned them. Remember, it's because it's got a right angle plug so it fits. Dan has told me this will work. I've stripped the ends, and I've also made a makeshift cable grip out of an old raw plug, a piece of tubing and some shrink wrap. Let's see if that works. My little makeshift cable tidy thing, soldered up inside. I'm not showing you the soldering, but I think it's done. Let's go and see if it blows the HK up. What I don't know is that it is actually going to fit the slot comfortably and make all the connections it needs to, because it's a different kind of connector. Okay, ready? Please, 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 please. Please, 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 please. Well, would you look at that? Would you look at that? This is taking ages. I'm just going to see if the remote function does actually work. I've never checked it before, so I've got this switch that you'd find in a deluxe reverb or a super reverb that will turn on the reverb and tremolo and off. I'll just plug it in and we'll see if it functions. Oh god. Anyway, okay, so on off. Nope, that's fast slow. Great. And on off. Yeah, there you go. Watch the on off light. Boom. Fast slow. That's great. So that works. It's a moment of truth. I don't know about the moment of truth. So I've made up a couple of patch cables that are long enough to do the job. So they can go down. I've decided against the fender foot switch, and I'm just going to use a standard TRS cable that's not very long, that can live in the amp just for the time being. And I can either attach an extender to that to go to G3, or I can attach a TRS foot switch to it to turn it on and off. So that can go on there. The power, as previously discussed. So it's in, out, TRS, and that's 4 connections. Now, the really cool thing about having it mounted in the way that I said I would, so it would sit on this back bar here, is that there's space underneath for the cables to go out for the foot switch and for the power, which is pretty neat. It does mean attaching it at the back, and I'm going to do that using a couple of bits of this, which I think will be enough. I don't know how much of this will make the edit. It seems like a long and drawn out process. As explained, build this up in layers. In, out, remote, power. 4 things in the back. It's ready to go in. I just need to peel the Velcro off. Peel the sticky side off the bottom of where the Velcro is going to stick. Cursory wipe. I did dust it out earlier. You get dusty. And please, Mummy, she's down. Well, that was a massive shag. Done the same with the power supply. So that's down nice and firm. The cable can just come out the back to attach this extension to. Just checking they're not too close to the tubes, but the tubes have got the little holders on, so won't be any direct intense heat there. Idiot check. Power can come out the back. Foot switch can come out the back. So we can put the screws back in. Should I test it before we put the screws back in? Nah. Okay, that's it. Back on. Everything's in there. I've made up a new word. Preposterity. Let's test the preposterity of it. Because rotary speakers are pretty preposterous, right? It was quite a heavy combo before. Actually, that's not too bad. It's not ridiculous. I've got a 112 Mark III Mesa in at the moment, and that, I would say that's heavier. Ace. All right, time for testing. Okay, blimey. Pedal board exactly as it was. Marshall exactly as it was. The big 2-rock has gone and the little one is there. Little. With the rotosphere in the base of it. By the sounds of it, I think it's on. So it's in the effects loop, and on the floor I've got a Boss FS6 foot switch just to do the on and off. Let's see. Please, please, please work. Cool, it's working. There's some work on the levels to do. The amp's overdriving a little bit, and there's quite a lot of high treble at the moment, which could be the buffer in the loop. I will figure that all out in due course, but the fact is it's working. So let's turn the Marshall on, see where we are with phase. It works. It works. It works. There's a lot of mucking about to do, setting the amps up. And then obviously we've got to make that side of the amp rig smaller, considerably so, and decide what we're going to do in terms of making the board bigger or smaller. But so far, Rotosphere in the bottom of the little 2-rock works great. Little 2-rock on its own works great. Little 2-rock, ridiculous, 50-watt TS1. Smaller than the big 2-rock. So I think we'll leave it there for this episode. The whole shenanigans with messing about with the Rotosphere has taken all day. A couple of lovely old friends dropped in to say hello. Danish Pete came in, Jack Duxbury came in. Completely unexpected. It was lovely to see them. But it did eat half the day, for which I am extremely grateful. I think we'll pick this up next time. I'm all of a fluster. I've got a rehearsal with my pub band tonight, playing the big guitar. Yeah, bit disjointed, but this is how it goes. See you next time. Thanks for watching.